We'll do it live.
Hello and welcome to Under the Sticks, presented by Big Red Cloud. My name is Andy McGeady. Visit www.bigredcloud.com for all your online accounting needs. Joining me today on the show, I have Mr. Sean Holley. How are you?
I'm good. I'm having some technical issues with my sound, but apart from that, yeah, I'm really good. And I had a game of golf today, so things must be looking up.
Nice. Yeah, you look lovely. That's the main thing. Housewife's favourite. I know that.
He's looking pretty, isn't he, tonight?
He is. That second voice you heard was Paul Williams. How are you?
Very well, thank you, gentlemen.
Producer Adam, how are you?
I'm just stunned at how short Paul's little intro was.
Yeah, me too.
Well. Move on.
No.
I went for
and the idea is to just talk a little bit.
I went for brevity for once. I thought I'd toe the line.
Yeah, we're going to come back to Paul, believe me, because if you're not watching the show live right now, you're missing something, and I'm going to get to it. It's absolutely fascinating, right? Later on in the show, we will be talking about potential strike action in the Winds in England. We'll be asking summer rugby, yes or no. That's the kind of nuanced question we ask here. We'll also be chatting very soon with the newest addition to the Rugby Retirement Village. This James Hook, we talked about him a lot last week. He is here. He's almost here. First, some housekeeping. The email address for the show is underthesticks@pro14rugby.org. So hit us up with anything you like. That is the end of housekeeping. Paul Williams, I have to go for it. There's a load of tennis rackets on your wall. Explain.
Right. So as you can see, I wear glasses and I get a bit of a problem with the reflection, which I've got now. So I've moved rooms from the other room I was doing it into, and this is going to make it sound like I live in a castle, which I don't, but into my tennis stringing room. And then behind, I collect tennis rackets. So behind me are the sort of vintage rackets. To this side are the 1980s rackets. And then to this side are the 1970s rackets. And that's the little tour of my stringing room.
Do you know, I think every week since he's said about his hair being like in the earlier serial killer days.
Yeah, it's getting
more and more evidence. Like, imagine you just turned up to his house to look for him and you found this room with rackets on the walls.
Yeah, this is like that Alan Partridge room.
How many people? How many people do you know can say they've got a tennis racket stringing room?
No, that makes it sound grander than it is. Yeah,
it's just like Frasier, where Niles had the wrapping paper room just for wrapping.
Yeah,
that's your Niles Crane to me.
I'm more unusual than him,
I think Hookie's here. We welcome Mr. Hook to the show, Adam.
Adam to the stream.
Here he is,
Mr. James Hook. There he is, looking sharp.
How you doing, guys? You okay? How's tricks?
Good, thank you, James.
Very good. We're all very well here. Are you feeling relaxed now that you're part of rugby's retirement community?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's a bit strange. Obviously, not getting to finish off with a couple of games, but yeah, I feel quite relaxed.
Sean, we talked quite a lot about Mr. Hook last week because the news came in like just before we started recording. So it was fresh in our minds, fresh in our hearts. Sean, say nice things about James.
I've always said nice things about Hookie.
It'd be difficult.
He's my boy, isn't he? The Hookster. He's Ledge. He's a Batova boy. And like I said last week, an absolute pleasure to work with. Hugely talented. Could play multiple positions. But like I say always about my favourite, and Hookie's one of them, obviously, is that what people underestimate is that he was rarely injured, right? So he was very durable, consistent, but he's tough. I don't mind saying it to him. I've said it after a few beers anyway, Hookie, but he's tough, and that genuinely stands players out. We talked about Shane in the past, Brian O'Driscoll. Hookie's a tough lad, and because he comes from Portal, but he's supremely talented. It was an absolute pleasure to work with him. I said last week I was devastated when he went to Perpignan, but understood it. But we've stayed close, Hooky, haven't we? We've worked together, and families know each other. Went water skiing together last year. Well, you were water skiing, I was swimming, I suppose.
we even got the same T-shirt on as well, haven't we?
Yeah, it's got Hooky along the back. You got Hollister of it.
There's a little tear coming to my eye. This is terrible.
Sean and Hooky can just go live to the masses.
Think they should. Here, James, like when it came down to it, I know you said it's a strange way to go out. So how does it feel? Like, not everyone gets to dictate the way they go out, but this might be stranger season than most.
Yeah, obviously for obvious circumstances, but I feel lucky that I'm able to go out on my terms, and as Sean says, I didn't pick too many injuries up throughout my career. I think I had one shoulder operation in 2009, I think it was, and that was pretty much my biggest injury. So I feel really lucky there. Obviously I've played with some players who've had horrendous injuries and been really unlucky. So that stood me in good stead. But like I say, it would have been nice to finish off with a couple of games. Obviously announced my retirement at the start of the year. But yeah, so it goes. It's it's the way it is, and I got to get on with it now.
So I'm not being smart, but how do you stay that injury free for that long? Like, were you like that as a kid?
Yeah, I suppose I was. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. It's a difficult one, because like I say, I've played with so many players. I know Henry Trinder in Gloucester, unbelievable talent. Sean, well, you all probably know who Henry is, and just really unlucky with injuries, and I can't tell you the reason why. And there's a lot of players like that. So it's not that I'm not getting stuck in or trying to avoid contact. It's just the way it is. I don't really know the answer though.
Oh, when you meet Hooky, boys, if you have the pleasure of doing it, you'll see he's supremely fit. He's superbly conditioned, keeps himself in good nick, and that's a lot to do with it. Also, he was able, as a player, to have that ability to ride tackles, be elusive, sidestep, swerve, which you don't see a lot of these days. He could change direction quickly, had a good fend and a turn of pace. So all those things help and let's face it, at his pomp, blokes would have been trying to take his head off, because stop James Sook, stop his team. And he was able to ride that, use it, revel in it, bring players into the game. And you'll see some of the tries he scores. He's shrugging off people. He's leaving them in his wake, as they come in to kill him. So that's testament to him and his training, but also one of the reasons why he stayed fit.
Mr. Williams, last week you were effusive in your speech about enjoying watching Mr. Hook play.
Yeah, well, James knows I'm a bit of a sycophant. I am his number one fanboy, and always have been. And it seems
thanks for that, Paul.
It's a bit creepy now doing it to his face. But yeah, we were just watching. I was looking through some of your highlights last week on YouTube, and on people were tweeting stuff you'd done, and everyone knew about the passing and the step and all that. But the two things that I always will remember you for is that fend of yours, which is insane. I don't think they used to forget you do it, I think, and then out would come the piston, bang, and you just drop people. And then the other thing I remember you for is you were one of the first. I remember deliberately doing the rip and strip in defence, like trying to get your hand under the ball and ripping it out to the top. Yeah. And you started doing that about 10 seasons ago, I suppose. And I'm not saying other people hadn't been doing it; they probably were. But you were the first one I remember deliberately doing it when someone's held up and then trying to get your arm in and strip the ball out. So yeah, amazing career. And like I say, one of my favourite players. Watch you all day.
Thanks, Paul. I've been asked a bit about my handoff and things, and it's not something I really worked on. And I suppose I'm not the biggest bloke in the world, but I used to be called arms and legs in college because I just had long arms, long legs, and I think that's probably one of the reasons. Just long levers, and when I put that fend out, they probably don't expect my arms to be as long as they are,
Yeah. Okay, you were supposed to have a testimonial coming up at the Knoll beginning of July, wasn't it?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Lockdown's put pay to that now. There's a few of our viewers on asking a little bit about that. We got Howell Davis just asking. are you still going to have a testimonial? And then a few other people like Brian Evans and Martin Davis asking, look, what does the future hold now? What testimonial is one thing, but what does James Hook got to look forward to now?
Yeah, well, first of all, the testimonial will still go ahead. Obviously, once we can have gatherings again. So whenever that will be, hopefully next year. And obviously, the game is a big part of that. It's going to be in the Knoll whenever that is. And the future, I'm doing my level 3 coaching course at the moment. The Welsh Rugby Union have put on a professional level 3 course, and there's quite a few of the boys, current players, involved in that. So I've been doing some kicking coaching in the Ospreys with the academy and the senior boys. So I want to stay on there and do some bits there. And I've got some children's books coming out in October as well, which I'm excited about. So they were supposed to be out at the start of June, but obviously with the virus, it's been put back in October. So yeah, there's bits and bobs going on, but a lot to be excited about.
Time out. You've got children's books coming out. I need to know more.
Yeah, and also we've been collaborating with the children's author Dave Brayley for the last couple of years now. It was when I was in Gloucester, my eldest boy Harrison, he went to a children's rugby book after school, so we went to a book fair. And there wasn't any there. There was a lot of football books for children and other sports, but no rugby books. So it just got me thinking a little bit. And then when I came back to Wales, I got in touch with Mal Pope, who some of you may know, who put me in touch with Dave Brayley, who was a children's author, and we ended up sort of collaborating a children's book based on myself, a young boy called Jimmy. And I've mentioned it before. I was growing up, I had glasses and asthmatic, sort of gangly child. So that's all in the book. And yeah, we've been given a book contract, a 2-book contract with Polaris. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Amazing.
Okay, we're definitely giving a few of those away on the pod at some stage.
Yeah, defo. I have to hit a question here from from Noel Lyons. Does Paul Williams have a James Hook room in his mansion?
Right. James, this is the regular bullying that happens to me on this show every week. Right? This stringing room isn't. It makes it sound like this is the east wing of my house.
Mate, have you ever seen a Hookster? Have you ever seen a stringing room before?
Like John McEnroe, Emma.
Yeah. No, but I will have a room built for James after his retirement. I'll put that in the east wing where I keep the hounds.
Hey, where'd you set John Longwood Rugby up, Paul?
Oh, well, weirdly, that's in the room next door. That's in the PlayStation room, that is, James. It's got just one PlayStation in the middle of a white room. Yeah, I was playing that. We'll have to have a game of that one day, James. I'd love that.
100%. Our kickman, Sean in the Ospreys, we're massive fans of it. And we sort of grew up with the same age, so the Longwood Rugby era. And after training, we'd sneak up to his kit room and have a 3-test series there every
Nice.
day. So, brilliant.
Oh, it's still the best game. I was playing it the other day. It's so fluid, even though the graphics are mental. Yeah. It's just the passing's beautiful on it. I love it.
Favorite rugby game ever by far.
Yeah, big time.
I don't know what will come of it, but we've and I say we as a Pro 14, we've had a little word with the producers of the game about potentially trying to revive it in some capacity, but not sure if that will work out. But yeah, at least we know we've got some test subjects if we can get it back up and running.
Yeah,
100%. That'd be brilliant. That would.
Now we're talking. I've got this lovely image of James and the lads telling Sean, "We're just going to do some stretches after training." Locking themselves away.
Yeah. Well, it's better than sneaking off to Wine Street having a night out on the pod.
Actually, I don't want to break Cookie's heart, but actually, Paul actually procured us an old PlayStation and Jonah Lomo because we were going to do it before Judgment Day, like a Friday night in a pub before Judgment Day for a fan event, and it's been in my desk in work ever since. And I was trying to figure out if there's a way I could have brought it to the media day in Cardiff. We were going to hook it up in the green room for the players, but we need about 7 million different types of adapters to get us to connect to the Jumbotron and the President's Suite or whatever it was. But no,
we'll get it
I never hear anybody say a bad word about John Alomu Rugby.
Yeah, let me know. I'll be there.
Yeah, I'm me.
Oh, sorry. Here's one straight away. Here's a good comment. Who was the better fly half in Lomu Rugby?
Liner was the 10.
Laxana Sombong. Yeah, Liner 100%, but
Yeah.
love the Laxana Sompong name.
Yeah.
That's a great
My
question. That's
My apologies to everybody who asking serious questions in the comment section. And the first question was John
Everyone wants to know about James's career, and we're asking him about a 25-year-old PlayStation game.
That's Andrew Swain. That's Fox Sports Australia. He's a legend. He's a commentator. He's all excited about Super Rugby now. Well done, Swain, over coming in. I'll ask a sensible question, Uki. You brought up a little bit about the Ospreys there. Few of our viewers are asking your opinion about the takeover that's just happened, and now the prospects. Is the future looking bright for the Ospreys, in your opinion?
Oh, 100%. I think, was it just over a year ago, nearly 2 years ago now, there was all the merger sort of shenanigans going on with the Scarlets, and we were in a bad place. But I think now, with this takeover, it's all good news. I think speaking to a lot of Ospreys sort of players and the odd supporter here and there, they're all really excited about it. And hopefully the future is bright for the Ospreys now, and we can be back to where we were when we first started.
There's just one thing I was a bit late onto the pod last week because I was trying to calculate all the points you'd scored and the different amounts of games you'd played. But the one question I'd like to ask you about your career, because I presume you've kind of probably had some sort of a look back, maybe because you've been thinking about it, and it was probably always going to happen this summer for you. But your Lions tour, was that a good tour? You weren't involved necessarily, front running for the test team, but a lot of the players who went on that tour, and even though it was a losing tour, have so many good memories of it, and they speak so highly of it. What was it like for you?
Oh, I loved the tour. It was an amazing tour for me, and Sean will probably say, it was disappointing at the start, really, because I wasn't initially selected, and then Sean had to sort of read out the selected Lions from the Ospreys, and I wasn't in that. So initially, I was obviously gutted, but then it was only a matter of about a week or so later. Like Lee Halfpenny got injured, so I went on the tour, and I left with the squad from London, so I felt like I was part of it from the start. But yeah, great memories of playing on the tour and the whole tour in general off the pitch. Sort of gutting as well. I didn't get on in the last test. We were 19 points up, and the only player that wasn't used, which is obviously disappointing. But yeah, that's the way it goes.
Oh,
I wouldn't have done that to you, son.
No, not me. I just started immediately.
But apart from that, it was a great tour, amazing tour, and obviously everyone's seen the sort of test series and the games, leading up to were brutal. But yeah, a tour I'll never forget. I remember actually Ian McGeady ringing me up to say, I was selected. I was out for my wife's 21st birthday party with the family, having some food, and the phone was ringing in my pocket, ringing over and over. I thought I'll leave it. It was probably nothing special, and I thought after the fourth or fifth time it rang, I sort of went away from the table, and he was Ian McGeady, and I knew he wasn't ringing, to wish my wife a happy birthday. Like, he wanted to make one of the phone. So it's a great phone call to have, and I off up to London the next day, and the rest is history.
I don't know, James. If Ian's ringing to wish your wife happy birthday, there's going to be questions. That's all I'd say.
Do you know? Can I ask you one question? Because obviously, very few players. I'd say you and Matt Gitto are the only two I've ever seen who were like genuine test standard in 4 positions. Which is the one you favoured playing? Because you were so good 10, 12, 13. You played 15 as well, not with Sean. But in some clubs picked you there, and put you there sometimes. Which was the one you enjoyed playing the most?
Oh, I always say 10 was the one I really enjoyed playing. I started with Neath and sort of got recognised playing at 10 for Neath, and in my early sort of Ospreys days playing at 12. So there wasn't much to choose between sort of 10 and 12, and I really enjoyed playing for the Ospreys at 12 because Sean would back it up. The way we played, it was 2 playmakers. So even though you had a 12 on your back, you were essentially like a 10 anyway. I enjoyed some moments of 13. 15 was my least favourite position. Just felt, I wasn't in the game enough for my liking, and a lot of chasing kicks, fielding kicks, kicking it back, and just running from side to side without sort of any impact in the game. So 15 was my least favourite, and 10 or 12 my favourite, I think.
Well, you were class at all 4.
That's interesting to me because a lot of the time these days when we see teams try to play a second playmaker, It's not often 10-12. Often it's 10-15, and they try and perhaps force a guy into 15. Who might...
Oh, Andy's
Oh,
frozen,
he's
but I'm
gone.
sure he was going down that line of where do you stand on 10-12 and 10-15, Hooky?
Yeah.
I think he's probably trying. I suppose that's probably why I was picked the 15. A lot. Not so much for the Ospreys. I don't know. He played it. Not even a handful of games of 15 for the Ospreys, but for Wales, that's probably what they were trying to do is trying to put me in as a playmaker from 15. But obviously with Gatland's style of play, it was a lot more difficult to probably other coaches.
I said it last week. I think Hooky was wasted at 15. I think it's just like in my opinion, it's just trying to get your best players on the field, which, all right, I see that. But he's so devastating up in the front line, particularly at the time when he moved to 12 for us. One with the emergence of Dan Biggar, but two, he was able to be a second ball player, as he said, kicking options either side of the ruck. And then, about a year or two later, people are saying, oh, that's the way to go. We should have 10s at 12 and so on. I'm like, oh, really? And that was the best of the Ospreys. I think when Hooky played at 12, it just opened up a new game. And I loved him at 10, particularly when he's coming through as a kid. I told a story about when I took Scott Johnson down to watch you, Hooky, at the Knoll, and but I loved him at 12 because it just brought new options for us. So
yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, I think I always go back to saying the 2011 Six Nations probably summed up my career as a whole. Really, I think I started the Six Nations at 15, and then I moved to 10 against Scotland. And I was always, every time I had an opportunity at 10, I felt like I needed to prove myself. And I had a good game up in Murrayfield, played really well. We won the game, so I thought I might get a run at 10 here. Then John and Davis got injured in that game at 13. So I remember Rob Howley coming up to me and saying, we were going to pick you at 10, but John and Davis is injured, so we need you at 13. So that pretty much summed up my career. So that Six Nations, I started at 10, centre and 15, and that was pretty much the whole of my career in one Six Nations there.
And James, you've played, you're rare breed in terms of having played, Magners League, Pro 12, Guinness Pro 14, played in France, playing in the Premiership. How did that make you a better player as you kind of, get towards the end stages of your career? And like, how did that help you? What was the impact of being able to draw on experience from all of those different places? And
I don't know. I think they were all different. Obviously the Magners League at the start, we had pretty big crowds, especially for the derbies. Towards the end of my career, not so much. But going to France, obviously played there for the Ospreys in Europe and absolutely loved the atmosphere and how passionate the fans are and the players, getting up for games, particularly home games. I've never seen, a team get up for a home game as much, and then the following week for an away game be so relaxed. It's crazy. But coming to Gloucester then again was a different sort of experience as well. But the crowds, I think, were the main thing. As players, you want to run out into full houses. When you're playing against great teams, you want the supporters there and the atmosphere. And in France and Gloucester, England in particular, were the crowds that got me going and things I enjoyed most, I think.
James, there's a question here from Brian Evans. He's just asking, what do you think we need to get the crowds back to the regions?
Brian Evans.
Brian Evans.
Brian Evans.
It's tough, isn't it? I think, it's a lot to do with probably, money, revenue. And I think, the backers and the Ospreys coming in, hopefully that can help. And, I've heard a couple of things. We obviously haven't met the new owners of the Ospreys, but they want to focus on the commercial side and trying to get the crowds back in, because that's what they need. Ask any player in the Pro 14, they love playing in front of big crowds. So, if we can, we certainly got the players. We've got so many Welsh internationals at the Ospreys now. So, the supporters who want to watch these players. So, hopefully we can get that back slowly, but it's not going to happen overnight. Obviously, with what's going on at the moment, it's going to take time now.
Right, Adam, you've been watching comments rolling in. Any choice ones to pluck out here?
What was your favourite match for Wales? And that comes in from Dan Hadley.
I think I think Wales, England 2007 was one of my favourites. We'd lost every game in the Six Nations. I'd played 12 throughout that Six Nations. And Stephen Jones got injured in the Italy game. And then I was picked at 10. And we had to win the game to avoid the wooden spoon. So, it wasn't for any trophy in particular. But I just remember, going out there, just being really excited. And I scored a try after a couple of minutes and ended up sort of having a full house, which was quite special for me personally. But we didn't win any trophies, but we beat England, which is always nice for a Welshman, isn't it?
There's no such thing as a dead rubber when you're playing England, is there?
No.
Glad this question's come in. This is Michael Jenkins. Who was the best player you played with? And he's asking you to split that into backs and forwards. But yeah, you've played with a ton of great players. Who sticks out in the memory?
I think the obvious one in the backs is Shane Williams. I think playing with him, obviously for club and country, I think Shane was a player that, if you're losing with a couple of minutes to go, you're looking around and you're looking, right, how are we going to get Shane the ball? We need to get him because he's going to do something. Whenever he touches the ball, he does something. So Shane definitely in the backs, and in the forwards, it's a tough one. I think it's probably Philo Tia. I think in the Ospreys, he's just a machine, and I think what a lovely bloke. But on the pitch, he's just an animal, and the way he helped young players, particularly myself as a young player coming up through the Ospreys, he helped me so much. And he was a player, but he was like a coach as well, and so much respect from the Ospreys players and supporters. So yeah, he's definitely one of them, Philo.
And I think the last one I'm going to grab out from you is from Mad Monster. Now, I know you've mentioned that the England-Wales game was your favourite, but can you pick out one particular highlight of your career or something that's just going to stick with you till your dying days?
I think the 2008 Grand Slam as a whole is one that sticks out, and a lot of my sort of success as a player came actually early on in my career with the Ospreys and with Wales. But I think winning that Grand Slam with Wales in 2008 was a great memory, and it was obviously the start of a great run of many years for Wales.
There you go.
Good. I think that's the best of the bunch. So sorry to anyone whose questions I didn't get to read out.
Well, I've got one more. So you played in all those competitions. Were you ever tempted or offered to play Super Rugby?
Oh, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, I was actually. And when I left Perpignan before I signed for Gloucester, I had an option to go to Melbourne Rebels, and they obviously split the season, so it was like sort of 6 months or so in Japan and then 6 months or so in Australia. And it was something we were really tempted to do. And I had 2 boys then. I've got 3 boys now, but me and my wife. My wife always says she's loved to go to Australia, but Gloucester came in, and I don't know. We felt that we'd been away from home for 3 years, and it was just time to sort of come a bit closer back to home and sample the Guinness Premiership. But yeah, it was a great offer, and it's not something I regret, but it's always something I think about. Where what if it would have probably really enjoyed it actually.
Yeah, Paul, do you need a moment now on hearing that?
I'm just going to turn my screen off. Yeah, man, you'd have been brilliant in that league, even better than in all the others. That it's you and Shane Williams and the Melbourne Rebels. Imagine that. So was that at the time, because they were at the time the Rebels, that's when they were bringing in like Cipriani and people like that, when they were looking at Northern Hemisphere players, weren't they?
Well, Cipriani went when Hookie turned them down.
So I'm thinking, yeah, poor man's Hookie, isn't he?
No, I can't remember Cipriani. I'm not sure what year he went now, but I was definitely tempted, but no, we ended up going to Gloucester, which wasn't a bad decision either, really.
Yeah, nice move.
Yeah.
Well, we've Super Rugby to watch this weekend, and I think it's time we let Mr. Hook go. It's probably past your bedtime now at your age, is it?
Oh, it is. When the kids are down, I'm ready for bed.
No, that feeling.
Catch up soon, yeah.
Yeah, hey, pleasure. Thanks very much, boys.
Thanks, James.
Very much.
Cheers. Take care.
James.
Ta-da.
Oh, I enjoyed that.
And me.
See, he's pretty unflappable, isn't he?
Yeah.
We found that out really early on. We played Sale in the Heineken Cup. Sale were the English champions the year previous. And it was back in the time where the clock didn't go into the red, and we were down by 6 points going into 80 minutes. We threw everything at it. It would have been a tough old game, Shabal and that lot, And we went through an amazing. You can watch it on YouTube, right? Have a look at the passage of play. It's something ridiculous, like 16 phases. It hits the 87th minute. The ridiculous amount of offloads, and it's one of the best pieces of rugby you'll see. And Shane Williams, guess who, goes over in the corner. Now he tries to get a little bit closer to the post. We had brought James on, I think, as an 18, 19-year-old off the bench. And it was his first kick. And it was to win the game. It was a conversion. It was 20, I think it was about 19 or 18,000 in Liberty Stadium. An 18, 19-year-old. It wasn't an easy. It was a bit like remember the Neil Jenkins one at Wembley when Scott Gibbs got over? It was that sort of scenario, but a little bit further right. And if I remember rightly, he teed it up. And the referee, I think, don't hold me on this, but I think it was Alan Roland, right?
Here we go.
And I'm pretty sure. I know Alan well.
Sorry,
and I'm pretty sure Alan.
Hold on. I have to get in here. Everything when Welsh people are involved is about Alan Roland.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Alan really liked the Ospreys winning anything. But anyway, he made Hooky. He was a young, you'd think a nervous kid. He made him move the tee back because he thought Hooky had taken it in a yard or two. So Hooky then had to go back, set it up, do it all again, and he struck it true as you like. Through it went, and a star was born. So a great guy.
I remember watching that game in a pub in Cardiff. It's one of the best tries I've ever seen. It's amazing.
Check it out. All our viewers should have a little look at it. Sale, Ospreys v Sale, Heineken Cup. I think it was about 2006-07 that season.
It is. I think I just moved to Cardiff back from London. It's the end of 2006, I think.
I think Adam's still in shock because this memory doesn't involve the British and Irish Cup.
The EDF, yeah.
The Anglo-Welsh.
I got a few left in the closet, boys. Don't worry.
It's all there.
So
that's the under the sticks bingo or drinking game,
pretty much. So I did ask him about Super Rugby. I'm so glad that New Zealand have done so well because not only do we have rugby, but because they moved up or down a level, whatever you want to call their success at countering COVID-19, they have fans in the stadium. They have been able to move the game to, from our perspective, a great time, which is 8 a.m. in the morning. And for them, I think it's 7 p.m. And that means that the teams can prepare normally, as opposed to having to go in and out in the same day, because that's what they're originally planning to do. Is said, no, we need to have these odd kickoff times to let the teams come in and out in the same day. But we're back to something that looks normal, and we'll have real live rugby on the TV. Highlanders Chiefs, 8 a.m. Are we excited, Paul Williams?
Yes, we are. I cannot wait. I've been waiting for this for weeks. And, I tweeted this week that I know I was sycophantic about James, but my levels of appreciation of Kiwi rugby really are sycophantic. And it just goes to show how well they do everything in that country that's rugby related. The first to bring the sport back, first to have crowds back. Think how lucky they are. They are going to be able to go to a rugby ground, have a beer and watch live rugby, which seems miles away in my mind. And I just can't wait. Like I said previously, if you wanted 5 teams to be playing each other repetitively, it's those 5. It's the dream come true, and I cannot wait.
It's kind of weird.
Other than the birth of my kids, this might be number 3 in terms of my achievements.
But it is weird because you say these things are normal things, yet they do seem incredibly far away. Like just to have someone, never mind being at a game, but being at a game and having someone sitting right next to you who you don't know. And you know what? Don't really care.
Do you know, earlier I read the Highlanders team sheet because it just came out, and it was like I'd found a lost Shakespeare manuscript. Honestly, I was just looking at it and going, oh, God, look at that. Oh, Aaron Smith. Can't wait.
It is going to be exciting, isn't it? Because for me, I'll be looking more at how the players sort of kick it off. Because you imagine they've been cooped up and physically training, how they go at each other. You know, this is going to be great. They know that the whole world, rugby world, is going to be watching because we're all hungry for this. So obviously, Gats, you know, has been involved with the Chiefs. You know, there's that interest for us up here. It's unbelievable. I've watched some of the old games. I'm doing some analysis, as Adam knows, for Guinness Pro 14. So I'm watching games, but there isn't anything like live rugby, is there? Because all of a sudden the whistle goes. All right, it's nice and nostalgic watching the old games, but we know the score. We know sort of who plays well and who missed the tackle, but we don't know what's happening Saturday morning. Anything can happen. And we got these laws that we discussed last week about 20-minute red cards and how quick is the breakdown going to be. Good God, it could be like a touch game rugby on acid, couldn't it? It could be unbelievable. So really looking forward to it. And the fact that the crowd's there and beer and things like that just adds to it.
I think we might see a player spew this weekend. Because they haven't played, and B, because we could be having like 0.5 second rucks. You know, because the ruck speed will be so fast now because it'll be whistled properly. They won't have played. I think we should run a book on that. There'll be a spew between 60 and 65 minutes, probably a lot.
I need to open the bookmaker's website right now.
Yeah, I'll register the spew.com now. I'll register it. We'll get it up and running Saturday.
You know, it's funny that Paul says that, because I've always felt when you watch the Kiwi teams play against each other in Super Rugby that there's some sort of unspoken gentleman's law that they don't really get involved in the breakdown too much. It's just you know. I'd say there's words had in the dressing rooms afterwards if there's been a ruck that lasted more than 1.9 seconds.
But think how fast it'll be now. I mean, it's already ridiculously fast, but with the new ruck interpretation, reffing as it should be reffed, it'll be unbelievable. 50-point games are a norm in Super Rugby. They're not that weird to have 50. With that, you could be looking at 60s and 70s even.
Do you know another thing is a couple of my mates, they love a little bet on sport, and there's been no bet. There's nothing to bet on apart from Belarus football or Andy's favorite sport, Korean baseball or something like that. But all of a sudden you got something that you think you know a little bit about, Super Rugby, that you watch, and my mates are going, I bet the bookies are like, bring it on.
Absolutely.
I'd say your WhatsApp chat groups are getting hammered with what's the score on this guy, Sean?
I know. The thing is, when not recent events in coaching, when you're a professional coach or player, it's in your contract. You're not allowed to bet on anything. So now that I'm not involved in that, and it's just my mates down the pub. Sometimes we'll have a little syndicate ourselves, but it has become big business, isn't it? Sports betting is blinking huge.
Massive.
Absolutely.
The big thing now is gambling on virtual sport. The online gaming. So gambling on people playing FIFA.
Get off.
Honestly, that's the new growth market in gambling. It's incredible.
Sounds like you have a new client on the books there, Paul.
Yeah, exactly. Try and get my way into that. Another unethical part of the world I can get my talent into.
Yeah, I want a declaration of interest before every show now.
We may not be able to have beer on Saturday morning, but we may be able to have a little bit of company to watch this game. Mr. McGeady?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You got permission?
Right. Okay. So to bring people behind the scenes, I haven't actually. I'm being Scout's honor here. I haven't actually told my wife yet that this is happening. She saw this is Scout's honor. This is no word of a lie, right? So yesterday, the game was moved up to 8 a.m. So at 6 a.m. I thought, you know what? No one needs to know. So if we're doing If we're doing a kind of a companion pod and a companion live show to the game, I'll be downstairs. Everyone else will be quiet. No one needs to know. Then they moved it forward to 8, back to 8, which is great. Don't get me wrong, it's blinding. Need all the sleep I can get with 2 small kids. But then I was told yesterday that, I got us tickets to the zoo, and she just saw my face and she knew something was up, and she knows the rugby's on. That's why my wife is brilliant. She knows me too well. She's already kind of gone, yeah, I'm gonna get some brownie points out of this one. But yeah, it might be a socially distanced, pop over to Shea Redmond.
Yeah. That'll just add an extra wrinkle when I deliver this news to my wife tomorrow. I've been waiting for the right moment to say, guess what? Just on Saturday morning, instead of you having a lie-in, I'm just going to be setting up a live stream podcast in the front room to watch the rugby, essentially with some of the lads.
And I may be drinking wine.
And sit on the other side. Yeah. And
so we're basically going to be doing what we're doing, and the game's going to be going on. So we're obviously going to be talking about things that have happened, and we'd be delighted for people to join us and ask questions and interact with us on that. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm delighted.
Yeah,
I'm delighted Sean's actually taking a professional angle on this. Andy going straight into telling us the story about his wife.
Well, I've got a vested interest here, mate, because a shameless plug for my golf club, the Grove Golf Club in Porthcawl, because I was due before Adam's brainchild came up with this. I was due to play in a tournament with a tee-off time of 9:10 a.m. Moral dilemma.
Yeah.
Fair play to them. They have moved my tee time to 11:30 so that I can do the End of the Sticks live stream podcast as Super Rugby and get out and play golf. Can you imagine how my wife feels?
If you're back at 5.
There are people who listen to this who are not of the male persuasion. We are going to be in so much trouble for this last 2 minutes. I tell you that right now. And I apologize. I apologize for all of us.
I haven't said anything.
So we are doing this.
We have a mandate from the public. We have a mandate from Twitter.
Go on. What was the final vote? Should we do this or not?
So we asked our followers on Twitter, should we do this live? Are you willing to watch second screen? And we'll give you plenty of daftness to go alongside it. A whopping 69% said yes, do it, and 31% no, lads, go back to bed.
That's democracy. You can't argue with democracy.
That's democracy or mob rule. Well, I'll go with mob rule. So on Saturday morning, we're going to give this a whirl. Okay, so we're going to fire up the interwebs. We're going to make this happen. We are just as excited, maybe more so, than everyone else to watch rugby, but we want to chat like this while we're doing it. And we'll have everyone who wants to be there along for the ride. So open invite. Anything we want to add before we move swiftly on to the next topic?
Yeah, so Saturday morning may be the reason why this podcast never ever happens again.
We don't know what will happen.
Yeah, 0. So Saturday, Highlanders Chiefs, 8 a.m. Blues Hurricanes, not quite so good on Sunday, 4:30 a.m. our time. But both days they're repeating the games. 10. Sorry. Actually, maybe only Sunday they're repeating at 10 now, because things are now nice. New rules. We did say we spent a lot of time in this last week. So if you didn't pick us up last week, we went to town on the red carded players replaced after 20 minutes, drawn matches to be decided by an extra time golden point, and the referees enforcing the breakdown rules. That last point, it would be interesting to see some guidance out there. I think that'd be interesting for everyone. And also, credit to Sky Sports, where it's due. I think this is a really good call. So James Gemmell of Sky, Jimmy said they're.
Can I just say he is one of the great guys in rugby broadcasting. He is
great guy,
good fun, and he is an absolute pro.
And what they're doing is they are just channeling the Sky Sports New Zealand feed. So for the half an hour before the game as well. So you get the proper build up on the ground there. Do you know what? I love that, because there's nothing like actually getting it from base. Brilliant.
You know, we can start the podcast when the coverage starts, but it'll just be Paul. It'll just be Paul to do commentary.
Just me on my own.
And then the
Yeah.
rest of us will pop in about just as soon as the team sheets are coming up. So
Yeah.
That's
I
from
can't
that's from the Williams viewing suite.
That's in the Super Rugby room.
It is, exactly. Adam, would this be about time to say that Pro 14 players can play very good rugby too, and to experiment with toys that you've been learning how to play with during lockdown?
yeah. So this evening before this, if you were watching the live broadcast, we replayed the Edinburgh Glasgow derby game from Christmas done at BT Murrayfield, and so to sort of hype that, we've now been digging into the archives for those special super slow-mos, and I managed to dig out this one. So we'll put this up on Twitter for those of you listening. But this is Bill Matta with his
Look at
glorious
that.
one-handed falling backwards out the back. There you go, Darcy Graham. And the easiest little I love this though. He should have passed it to Blair Kinghorn.
Yeah.
But typical winger says, no, I'm going to leave the guy on his knees. But yeah, that was a bit of fun putting that together. So hopefully you'll see
You only need to look at his hair dye to know he wasn't passing that. Don't you? Any wingers with that, it's just a step when he's going on his own.
It's great to see the close-up slow-mo, the grip that Bill Matta has on the ball. He knows exactly what he wants to do. Free his arm up, and I could watch that all night. That's fantastic.
I clipped that up from 6 different angles, and at each single one, it gets better and better. And
can we have one of them a week?
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do the Southern Kings one.
Do you know what's really interesting?
Do that next week.
Because it shows how big his hands are that he can palm that ball in the first instance. Because you see a lot of players. Sean, am I right that it's coached that if you can't palm the ball, that you jam it in that gap? This is very good if you're not listening to. Because I remember Rob Appleyard telling me once that they were coaching. So if you're listening to this tomorrow without the feed, so if you imagine bending your wrist over like a sort of goose's neck and then jamming the ball in that gap. Because I remember him telling me that it gave 3 contact points on the ball. So it's like finger, palm, wrist. So is that something that's coached, or is that?
I think it might be a rugby league thing. I remember Dennis Betts going to Gloucester and picking up something along those lines. You know, because obviously big man like Betts playing rugby league, getting through 2-3 guys on him to get that one away. Then coaches are always thinking of little innovative things there, and because the offload is so devastating, you know. But that's just pure Fijian magic, isn't it? You know, knows exactly what he's doing. You know, one hand on the ball, massive hand, and there's just the timing of it and the trajectory. Darcy Graham doesn't have to break stride. Magic.
Nakarawa, God, those two.
Nakarawa.
I'll tell you one thing. I will say well done to the Scottish cameramen, because on all of those angles, there was 2 angles where it happens so fast and the angle is so close in that there's a real danger that if you don't know who's holding the ball, you're just going to that ball's just going to go out of shot. On 2 the angles where that could have happened, it stays in shot, and that's because whoever has been told, and they've circled it, if this guy number 8 gets the ball, wide shot quickly.
Stay on him.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. That's I was just thinking that's American football running backs taught the same thing. Smaller ball, punchier ball.
Yeah,
get it right in there. Yeah,
right.
That if you watch the old Hard Knocks, that's definitely something coach Andy's spot on there. That's how they hold that. But it's away from his body. Look how 2 hands. Now he pushes it out, and you can see at the corner of his eye, it's his peripheral vision. So it's not just as he's going down, he needs to get it at the right pace, at the right height for Darcy Graham to hit it. That is absolutely sublime. That's easy to do.
That's just reminded me of something actually, which was quite timely about Jerry Collins, obviously Sean will know, but what you mentioned there about grabbing the ball, the running back. I remember somebody from Kiwi Rugby, but I can't remember who it was, but they knew what they were talking about, and they were quite influential, which is weird why I can't remember their name. But I remember them telling me that Jerry Collins, when he first came into the All Blacks, was told to reduce the size of his biceps because when he was crunching and carrying, sometimes he was squeezing the ball out from in. So they told him to reduce his arm size so he didn't squeeze the ball out through the middle, which I found hard to believe, but he was genuinely serious.
I heard that once. So maybe we heard it from the same person or we were in the same bar. That's
Yeah,
all.
big
Or
biceps,
lied
that's
to
for
by
sure.
the same person. Yeah. But he was. I remember him being told and thinking that can't be right. But then thinking, why would they make that up?
Yeah,
He had
who
big
knows?
biceps.
That's one of
He's
life's
big
great
arms, didn't
questions.
he?
Why would they make that up?
Well,
I know.
hold on
Yeah.
now.
I know. When
Yeah,
you've got some naive like rugby geek in front of you who believe anything you say, that's probably why.
Fair enough. He
Thinking
wasn't
of it.
even a New Zealander you were talking to.
I remember being
From
told
Neath.
about I don't know if it was Dave McSharry, the former Connacht centre, or one of these big giants of inside centres. And when I was reporting, and one of his teammates at club level for UCD told me something that I was pretty sure was a lie, but he said it, and I was like, "That's going to make good copy." And they claimed that
going
in
in.
one of their games that he collided so hard with somebody and holding the ball up by his chest that they had to stop the game because the ball split and they had to get a new ball on. And
God.
it was from my old club rugby column. I was like, that's going in. I don't believe it for a second, but he said it, and I will faithfully report the words that this man has described to me.
Nice.
So some things, I suppose the answer to your question, why would people sometimes it's just for fun.
And when you're up on deadline, you're not asking too many questions. That's what I'm hearing. Right?
No, this is feature work. A lot of effort goes into this, you know.
Yeah.
You gotta contact the right people with the right stories.
It's a past life. We'll leave it there. We're going to touch on something that's potentially interesting before we move on to our summer rugby talk. England rugby. So they've kind of an interesting news, bad news, good news thing going on at the moment. So in the Premiership, interestingly, they've said we're reducing our Premiership salary cap from 7 million to 6 million. Now, depending on what you read, but that's ballpark. There's a couple of interesting things going on there, like Harlequins have delayed coming back from furlough to contact training because they want to save money. It's that simple, and they've been very public about it, very upfront. But so that's interesting news. Good news is that there seems to be an intention to return on August 15th. Fair play, right? Play the season out. Let's see how far we get with that. But potentially very bad news is that throughout this COVID, there have been various measures to try and save money. PRL agreed a league-wide 25% pay cut for players after the season was halted. I'm quoting from Alex Lowe's piece in the Times. After the season was halted in March, without considering it necessary to consult the RPA. Again, quoting from Alex's piece. But it's reported in a number of pieces. The RPA, the Rugby Players Association, not entirely happy with this. And the general mood is not good. So my favourite little line from these pieces is the sports lawyer from Littleton Chambers has told players not to sign anything because they reckon, do you know what? You don't have to take this cut if we don't do things properly. Where there's lawyers, things get very interesting pretty fast. Sean Holley, if you were a coach looking ahead to actually getting into training, and all of this background is just, lads, can we get people back together safely? What would you think when now you've got this big wrinkle behind you that involves contracts?
You are between a rock and a hard place as the coach. You are, because you are charged with bonding and gelling together a squad, motivating them, getting them right. And you have very little chance of convincing agents, lawyers, the RPA as a sole coach of a club or region and influencing that. So, look, if I take a step back, I've got mixed feelings on it in general, because one, I think the guys at the highest level don't get paid enough. You know, if you compare it to other elite sports, you know, they don't get paid enough. They smash each other. You know, they're in a car crash every week, putting their bodies on the line in short careers. They make it to the top of their profession, and I don't think they get recompensed enough. But however, on the other hand, if there's a limit to a salary cap by a governing body, and there's a limit to the amount of money that's in the game due to, you know, lack of sponsorship or whatever, the TV deals and the revenues that have come in reach a certain level, then, you know, there's nothing we can do. We have to accept that. And, you know, everybody's in a furlough situation and a pay cut situation. As for doing our jobs, so they are no different. It's when the representatives get involved, isn't it? And the only thing about representatives I found is that it's in their interest, isn't it? Because they're getting money to represent, and therefore it's a good thing maybe to have a bit of an argument and a dispute. But look, I think most of knowing players as I do, most of them, the high percentage of them, will just want to get on and let this thing sorted. There's a small percentage then who are leaders, who are union type guys, who will be banging this drum. And I suppose as a coach, to answer your question finally, you've got to get to those, empathize with them, but at the same time, make them see the bigger picture. Look, we've got to get going. Things will get back to normal hopefully soon. So, let's do the job we got to do. It's very difficult for a coach.
Yeah, I mean, I think the outcome of it, everything Sean says there is obviously correct. I think the outcome will be that, they have to be seen to be representing the players, like Sean says. But the reality is they're not saying we can't take any pay cut at all. I mean, the commercial reality is if you don't take a pay cut, rugby may cease to exist or your club may go through, and then you won't have anyone to play for. But, the reality is they might be saying, well, let's not do 25, let's do 20. Or it may be we'll take the 25, but then we want, some leniency in other areas. So can they have more rest time? Can they have more of this? Can they have maybe a little bit, a bigger chunk of photo rights or whatever it is? So, I think it's with these situations, it's very real. It's very easy to think, oh, the players don't want to take a cut. That's really selfish. I imagine that isn't the reality. I'd imagine they're all aware of what is happening, that they need to save, like we all are. We're all taking pay cuts or doing less time. I imagine they'll probably just move those bargaining chips around, and they're trying to get a stronger position, which is exactly what their body should be doing.
And that's it. So I think both of you are bang on, and there's so many different perspectives here. But what is happening is that there's a position, it's 25%. Well, do you know what? The guys on the other side of the table, their starting point is not going to be, yes, we accept that 25%.
Exactly.
It's going to be somewhere else. And the art of the coach in keeping the players together as a unit is to be able to navigate around that, knowing it's in the background, but find that common interest between everyone, which is simply just, let's get black playing something. Adam.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's gonna get a little bit harder now because and a commentator, Chester Donnelly, says the top players get paid well, but some of the squad players are paid quite poorly.
Yeah, it's very fair.
The challenge they're going to have here with the reduction in the salary cap is that to the best of my knowledge and what I've read, is that the marquee players, are allowed still, they're still allowed to have, is it 2 players or 3 players outside of the salary cap? And so those guys will still get very handsomely rewarded. But if you've got, I think, it's is it 2 million less or 1.5 million less for your overall budget? I mean, that's a lot of money. You're taking a lot off the table there. So the disparity between the average wage of everybody else and then the players who are allowed to be paid outside of the cap, that's a lot of pressure on those guys as if, they're not already coming in with a lot expected of them. But, if you, like Sean, how would you deal with that in a dressing room if a guy comes in and plays slightly below, and then you've a load of guys who are in way less money than him and they've put everything out on the pitch,
that won't go down well. But I was going to say that Chester Donnelly's comment is a real good one, because what can happen with headlines like this, Andy, is that it could be misconstrued. That is, the big earners that are throwing their toys out of the pram, as it were. It's more likely to be the complete opposite, because somebody like a high earner who's a good club man, who understands and wants his team to do well, is prepared to take that pay cut, but he recognizes that the midstream and the academy type players who are breaking through, that's a massive hit to them on low salaries. So they are likely to be more the championing team players who are saying, hang on, no, it's fine for us as the big players, the big names, the internationals. We get recompense in other ways as well. We'll take out. But how about Joe Bloggs here, who's just broken into? So let's take a situation. We talked about hooky earlier on, that Sale game. If this had happened then, Hookie's just kicked that team as a 19-year-old academy last year type player on, I don't know, 20 grand to the next level in the Heineken Cup. As for that moment in time, he's no different to really Shane Williams, who scored the try. He was the British Lion on X amount of pounds, a lot more than James was. So, but if something like this happened then, can you see the disparity then?
Yeah.
And people like Shane would go, well, hang on, Hookie taking a massive cut here, because 25% to him is huge. So I think we shouldn't misconstrue that. But agents, lawyers, representatives, they are not in that bubble that Andy talks about. It's about camaraderie, teamship, the coaches understanding, cajoling and getting the morale right to get on with the job and hope it'll be happy, and then be the conduit to manage upwards to the director of rugby, CEO, board, owners, which if you're in that position is a nightmare position. You're the meat in the sandwich.
Yeah.
That's Paul, you have the last word here.
Yeah, all I was going to say, if the guys who run the game, this I'd like to think they're savvy enough. I imagine if they wanted or needed to make a 15% cut, initially they'd move for 25%. So, if you're making public that it's 25, you realize you're not going to get that. I imagine the numbers they're working off are nearer 15 to 20. So with a bit of luck, it'll work itself out. But it'll have to work itself out, because these things just need to. If the players don't take the cut, there'll be further problems. If you piss the players off too much, without, then you haven't got a team or a club. So it'll have to be fixed, and it'll have to be fixed in the next 4 weeks. That's that.
That it would be bad, but there will. This is a negotiation. Hopefully, they will all find a way.
It'll be fine.
We're now getting on to the topic du jour. So we've talked about the calendar, the global calendar, and in general, we have been effusive about our enthusiasm for, do you know what? Now that COVID's hit us, everything is on the table. Well, one of the things on the table is summer rugby. Could we actually see a move to our season here in the Northern Hemisphere from a winter season, September through to May, and if you're in France, a bit longer, to something different, maybe January, August. Summer rugby, be yes or no. Adam, you get to go first this time, because often you get to take pot shots after we've all done talking. You're going.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I do have a natural talent for deconstructing other people's arguments. Okay, so this actually came to me sort of today, and I know this has been bubbling away. And the general conversation I've seen on social media, well done, Andy. The general conversation, it's not too ardent either way. People are excited about the different possibilities and what could happen, but the soapboxers and the people who've got sort of big audiences, a lot of people on that side are getting real staunch and digging their heels into the muddy ground that they insist that rugby should be played in. And, I think of it like this. I mean, there are radical changes being proposed because rugby does need a change. And this is my personal opinion. So just to clarify that it's not based off anything else. But when William Webb Ellis picked up a ball that everybody else was kicking, that was pretty radical. And, moving the elite game and aligning the hemispheres and allowing more of our game to be played in the summertime in better conditions at the elite level. I'm not talking about disruption to schools, not talking about disruption to community games. That needs to actually coincide with educational institutions. Schools, colleges, universities, all the rest, because actually that's where the core of your player groups come from. And then, when you talk about your adult games as well, look, in the summer, people want to go and do their holidays and they want to do things. So look, I'm not saying disrupt that, but at the elite game, that's what draws in the money to pay for the grassroots. And I think if we don't seriously consider this, and if people who have, a big platform to talk on, if they're really going to dig their heels in and tell people this is terrible and that we simply must throw our players out in December and January all the time, I'm not sure they're doing right by the sport, and maybe they don't need to do right by the sport. But I certainly feel like if you can put the best product on the pitch more often than not, the job is to grow rugby and get more casual supporters, or maybe bring people back, you know, or people who used to go to rugby, but they've got a family and it just doesn't fit in. But actually, if you do it on a sunny day or a warmer day or a summer day, or, you know, I just think there's a lot of possibilities and we shouldn't be shutting the door on this just yet. So that's my opening gambit.
Totally agree.
Okay, we're going to continue that theme, right? So, Paul, you're in violent agreement, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to keep going. I've got two views on this, right? I like the idea of those late evenings where you've actually still got brightness to it. It makes it much easier to bring kids when it's a bright evening than a very dark evening. But you know what? Some of my very favorite nights after a game have been leaving a ground under the lights. It's cold. Maybe it's even cold and wet, and then just getting stuck in a pub somewhere, deconstructing the game with my sodden coat, trying to get dry. And I know I remember the good bits, right?
It's the 10th of June. It rained and hailed for 25 minutes solid today in Dublin.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say the same thing.
If that had happened when we started recording, I would have had to go off because the noise hitting off the windows and all that sort of stuff was insane. So look, trust me, if we move to summer rugby in this part of the world, I don't quite think we'll lose out on those gloomy, wet nights.
3 days ago, it rained so hard in Cardiff, it would have removed a tattoo. Right?
Look, as somebody who's played and coached and been a supporter in places like Australia and South Africa, where you go on tour or you play in a season and it's a little bit more balmy, like you say, Ant, you know, there's something that is just a little bit special about having a beer in a shorts and polo shirt out on the side of the pitch where there's a braai or a barbecue going and families and kids are running about kicking the ball. There's something a little bit more special about that. And then it gets a bit chilly and dark and the floodlights come back on and you put a fleece on and guess what? You have another couple of cold ones and there's something about that as well. And I just think, you know, my kids have played rugby growing up in the winter here, and the days that the parents have spent sodding on the side, the poor kids have had to play in mud and soaking wet and cold. And I know we're not talking kids here, but it's those memories that they have. You know, my two boys were good rugby players. They don't play anymore. They're 18 and 20. They don't play anymore. Why? Well, maybe they just wanted to not play in the wet and cold, you know. So I think there's that. And another thing for me at club rugby is an opportunity, a commercial. We struggle with our crowds here. And I think there's a commercial opportunity. So have a balmy evening, you can put a barbecue on. They can have an outdoor band. You know, there's more opportunity for commercial activities in the clubs to raise a bit of money. The downside for me is I'm president of my local cricket club. And if any of the boys are watching now, I'm going to get it.
Yeah,
that's going to be hit massively.
Yeah, it will be. For me, it's all about the quality of the game, right? Which is why I love Super Rugby, as you all know. There isn't a sport in the world that actively chooses to play in the worst weather it possibly can, other than rugby.
Or places to international calendar, to your most important part of the international calendar in the wintertime.
In the winter. Right? And even when you're given the option to come out of the swamp and move to the beach, you still say, no, I think we'll stay in the swamp if we can. It's nice and cold in here.
We've always done it this way.
We've got to move to the beach, right? The quality of the rugby will improve. It'll be warm. The commercial opportunities are ridiculous. I understand the cricket argument. You know, I used to play a lot of cricket when I was younger. I don't now. I don't think rugby is financially or supporter base in a position where it can worry about cricketers. I know cricketers aren't going to want to hear that. Loads of sports that have found themselves in trouble, they just have to look after themselves. You know, football doesn't worry about anyone else. None of these big games do. If rugby is going to succeed, it has to change. And I think that's the other bigger argument. Everyone always says, oh, that, you know, rugby needs to change. You know, we need to have a global season. But I don't want to change anything. Well, that's ridiculous. Because if the game's going to change, you've all got to make massive changes. And this might seem a bit weird. Let's try it. Like I say with all the things in rugby, let's try it. This isn't law. When it doesn't have to be like this forever. You can do it for 5 seasons. If it doesn't work, say, look, that was a nightmare. You know, we've had a load of cricketers around here swinging bats. We've had 3 murders. Let's move it back to the winter, right? Let's try it. Let's see how it works. Let's line the season up. This is the best time ever during COVID. Everyone's under pressure. Everyone's worrying about their jobs. Everyone is scratching around for money. And, you know, rugby as an industry it's like tissue paper at the best of times. You know, at the moment now, it's paper mache. This is the time. Rip up. I've got to go metaphor mad. Rip up the tissue paper and make a new model out of the paper mache. How's that?
I'm going to wake up tonight in bed with tennis rackets spinning around my head.
No, and all the nonsense I've just spoken going through your ears. But, you know, as you can tell, summer rugby, it's a no-brainer. Move the Six Nations into that window as well. Line it all up, do club, then do test. And let's get a proper global sport going.
You know, I have to say the one thing I find really funny is that it took Sean to mention barbecues to Mr. Barbecue to point out how that actually might be a really good addition.
That's when he changed his mind. I could see him. He was just thinking about all the marinades.
Genuinely did. I'm hold my hand up. I've never thought about that. I can get on board with that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you another one as well. You help save the planet. More games you play in summer, the less you need floodlights, the less electricity you're using, the less heating you're putting on, all this sort of stuff. So yeah, there's a winner.
We'll need more water probably for the pitches, but
yeah. So,
Chester Donnelly makes a good point, mate. What would we do in February?
No.
Oh,
what
here.
would we do?
Do you know what? That I'll be watching more football.
Yeah, but like this is the side of it. Like, you know, like how often is a brilliant like Six Nations weekend clashes with like a mega headline weekend in the Premier League? Do you know what I mean? Like, how can you actually compete and expect to grow your sport if that's what you're trying to do? You know,
you like you say, you're taking on the biggest game in the world head on. You know, logically, if you're doing like a SWOT analysis, the first thing you would do, like they did with rugby league, the first thing was, right, let's move this away from union and football. And that's the first thing you'd do. If you weren't a rugby fan and you were doing it strategically, that's the first thing. Move it away from soccer so it doesn't compete.
Yeah. So we'll see. Sorry, you go, Adam.
And no, I think the other thing is there's also another Chester Donnelly mentioned, you know, might also benefit the Welsh Premiership if that stays in the winter, the elite game moves to the summer. I mean, that's a conversation that goes on in all territories about the semi-pro game and that level below pro, because, you know, international games, professional games get scheduled for weekends and stuff like that. And also, if you're looking for attendances, people say, oh, people go away on holidays. Well, hang on a second. There's a lot of people who are very committed to playing semi-pro rugby or just playing, you know, social rugby with their mates. And they'd rather play that while they're young and single, or some maybe not young and single, you may be old and you've just been able to get out of the house after, you know, you've had a few kids or something at some stage. And people really treasure that, you know, men and women who really want to be involved in a team. And sometimes they say, do you know what, I can see the highlights, or I can watch it in TV, or guess what, after our match I'll watch it in the pub bar or the clubhouse bar. So I mean, there's that element. So if you actually give them a period of the year where they're free from the clutches of elite rugby, actually that can help as well. So I think there's so many strands to untangle here, but you know, I just do see a lot of positives, and you know, I'm a big one for seeing how this would work in the summer. And I do see other people saying like, oh, you can't go up against cricket, or in Ireland they say you can't go up against GAA. Well, do you know, what do you want to do? You can't turn around and say, oh, we can't go up and we can't do this. You won't achieve anything then. You say, right, let's not try and challenge those things. How do we work around those? How do we schedule at different times and stuff like that, you know? So
I think that's you know, that's the key. So it's about, instead of trying to ignore that other sports exist, right? So say you're in a territory like Leinster, Dublin. I remember a few years ago, I was at a Leinster game. I was sitting in the North Stand, and there was, I'd say, about 5 of us there. 3 of the lads were going straight from the Leinster game to the Dublin game because they could get them both in, right? And that's actually a breed of fan which wasn't there 10 years ago, by the way.
Mm.
Not in big numbers, but there's people like sports, people like doing things like that. And you have to kind of say, well, it isn't just a rugby fan. It's someone who actually wants to be entertained.
Yeah.
And let's make it easier for them to watch their bit of rugby, bit of GA, bit of, well, they can dip into a cricket all day long. That's slightly different.
But like if you
Sean.
went to a cricket game at 11 o'clock and then you were following up by going along to, a 7 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday night for rugby. I mean, like
you'd be well on it. You'd be well on at the end of that day, I tell you that.
Those dreams are made of, boys.
And particularly in Cardiff, if Glamorgan could sync with, say, Cardiff Blues, and you go from the rugby into a 2020, because the timing would work. A lot of those 2020s start at like 7 o'clock or whatever, 6:30, straight out the Blues up there. You get a double ticket. That what's not like.
You know what? I would absolutely hint do a road show, getting both of those in.
You can stay with me. You can sleep in the stringing room.
Yeah,
it'd be amazing.
That would be good. Okay, so broadly speaking, we are generally for this. There is no significant counter offer right now. Okay, there we go. Done. We're not going to create controversy where there is none on the show.
No.
Adam, any other viewer comments you want to call out?
No, I think we've done a good job. And thank you to everyone who's been watching. We've a pretty decent sized audience tonight. It's bigger than anything we've had so far. So pretty sure that was a lot down to James Hook.
James Hook.
Your
I think it's the pull of the rackets.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's drawing people in. Definitely drawing people in.
Who's that weirdo?
I should have got a ticker that just had a constant explanation. But no, we've had lots of comments. So I know myself and Sean have done as good a job as we can to sort of mention people's comments, even if we haven't flicked them up on screen and stuff like that. So a big thanks to our audience tonight. Well done.
Yeah, it's been great. Lots of really good ones there. That is a wrap for this. Well, not this week, actually, because if you want to be there again, we will be there on Saturday morning. So keep an eye on the Twitter and social media channels to get the link. We'll be there with you 8 a.m. for Super Rugby Aotearoa. How's that?
Nice.
Aotearoa.
Yeah.
Williams,
it's been a while. I will, yeah. So thank you to James Hook, our big audience draw for this week. He was really good fun. Thank you, Paul Williams. Thank you, Sean Holley. Thank you, Adam Redmond. Thank you, all of you who've been listening and watching. We really enjoyed this. This was a good show. That was Under the Sticks, presented by Big Red Cloud. My name's Andy McGeady. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
They call me cheetah, cheetah, cheetah. Ooh, cheetah, cheetah, cheetah.